I'm going to show you how to cut through the distortion that is keeping us from actually embodying many of the spiritual teachings and wisdom out there. You see, in the distortion, right, well, I'll just call it typically the other team that wants to sort of derail us and is really good at tricking people, right? It will present to you all these spiritual teachings, right? There's so many spiritual teachings out there. And one metaphor I give, based on last year learning something called astrogeomancy, which unifies, it basically teaches us that sound, math, geometry, and astronomy, right, astrology, is really all one thing, even though we sort of speak about it in different ways, right? Like every shape, right, has a certain number to it, which has a certain sound to it, which is correlated, of course, with the stars, right? Different shapes. And so one metaphor I give is, the other team, the distortion, wants us to intellectually understand the math. It wants to intellectually have us understand the geometry and how that correlates with math and music. It wants to have us intellectually understand how music is associated with, numbers and astrology and different shapes, right? And all that keeps everything separate. As soon as we think about it, right? As soon as we use words like math and music, we've already separated it. So in other words, it keeps us in separation, it keeps us in intellect, and it prevents us from living as those things, right? In other words, the key isn't to understand math and sort of music and geometry and astrology. The key is to live as math, to be numbers, to also be shapes, to also be sounds, and also to be different astrological alignments, right? So how do you do that, right? We know through the law of hermetics and the law of polarity, we can't set the intention to be those things because then we're casting a spell that we're not those things currently. So how do you obliquely embody being math, numbers, right? Sound, shapes, and things? Well, this goes back to if adding things don't work, which it doesn't, right? Many people who are watching this, I'm sure you realize that adding a bunch of things into your life has not really changed much things in your life. So what we do is we subtract, right? We simply subtract. Now, how does that work with this? You can set the direct intention to strip away all of the identities and stories that you have been programmed with. And what happens is the oblique benefit, the side effect, the guaranteed side effect when you strip away your programmed identity and stories, what happens is you automatically remember that you are, of course, the sound of the universe and the shape of the universe and the math and the numbers of the universe.